On October 14, 2025, Nvidia shipped a $2,999 ARM desktop called the DGX Spark, and Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo, MSI, and Gigabyte all signed on the same week. No Intel inside. No AMD inside. No Windows required. For the first time since IBM picked Wintel in 1981, every major non-Apple PC vendor simultaneously shipped a machine that routes around both monopolists. The mechanism is three-part and worth naming up front: CUDA lock-in, ARM architecture, and OEM distribution flipped overnight. Stay with me, because the analytical payoff is specific. I'm going to show you the OEM margin math, the x86 licensing implications, and the MediaTek consumer SoC arriving in 2026 that turns this beachhead into an invasion. Start with what actually shipped at GTC. The DGX Spark is a palm-sized workstation built around the GB10 Grace Blackwell superchip, a 20-core ARM CPU fused to a Blackwell GPU with 128 GB of unified memory. Per Tom's Hardware's October 14 coverage, it delivers roughly 1 petaflop of FP4 AI compute from a standard wall socket, for $2,999. The operating system is DGX OS, Nvidia's tuned Ubuntu build. 7 OEMs announced variants inside a single week. That coordination did not happen by accident, it happened because Nvidia offered them margin structure they cannot get selling $700 Intel laptops into a flat market. Here is the part the launch coverage missed. DGX Spark is not aimed at consumers. It is a developer Trojan horse. The real payload arrives in 2026, when the Nvidia MediaTek consumer SoC ships. Reuters reported in May 2025 that the two companies have been co-designing an ARM-based PC processor for mainstream laptops. Spark is the premium beachhead at $3,000. MediaTek is the volume invasion at $1,500. That two-step is the actual Wintel replacement thesis, and the equity research desks are still modeling it as a niche workstation launch. Now the capital flows, because this channel is about money as much as silicon. Per Mercury Research's Q2 2025 report, AMD captured a record 28.7% of x86 desktop share. It does not matter. Intel and AMD spent a decade fighting over a pie that, per Counterpoint Research's August 2025 tracker, grew just 3.1% year-over-year. Meanwhile, Nvidia's data center segment grew 154% year-over-year to $35.6 billion last quarter alone. The relevant comparison is no longer x86 versus x86. It is Nvidia's full-stack compute platform versus everyone else combined. What that means for your portfolio. Intel shareholders should watch client computing revenue. Bloomberg Intelligence's October 2025 outlook projects a 4% decline in 2026. I think it falls double digits as OEMs shift premium marketing dollars to Nvidia tiers where unit margins are roughly 5 times higher. AMD is partially insulated by Instinct data center GPUs, $3.2 billion in Q2 2025, but on the desktop, where the Agentic PC fight happens, AMD has no shipping answer. ARM Holdings collects a royalty on every Spark, every Grace CPU, every MediaTek laptop. TSMC fabricates Grace and Blackwell on advanced nodes that, per the Q3 2025 earnings call, remain fully booked through 2026. Now the contrarian section, because the smart viewers are already shouting at the screen. Does DGX Spark kill the consumer Windows PC in 2026? No. Not in 2027 either. The installed base of x86 Windows is over 1.4 billion machines. Enterprise software, legacy line of business apps, the entire gaming ecosystem, all x86, all Windows. A $3,000 ARM Linux workstation is not replacing a Dell Latitude in a Fortune 500 IT closet next quarter. Anyone telling you otherwise is selling clicks. The real thesis is slower and more dangerous for Intel. Spark seeds the developer ecosystem. Developers build agentic apps targeting CUDA on ARM. Those apps become the killer workload. Then MediaTek Nvidia laptops arrive at $1,500 running them natively, while Intel's Panther Lake runs them through translation layers. Wintel does not dissolve in a press release. It dissolves over 36 months of developer mindshare migration. Which brings us to the software moat. Per Nvidia's October 2025 keynote, CUDA now has over 6 million registered developers. Every frontier model, Llama, Mistral, Qwen, GPT-class architectures, gets trained and optimized on Nvidia silicon first. PyTorch, TensorRT, VLLM all target CUDA by default. DGX Spark gives developers a $3,000 deployment target running the identical stack as a $40,000 H100 server or a $3 million NVL72 rack. Same architecture, desktop to data center. This is what IBM pulled off in 1964 with System 360, a unified compute family that locked customers in for 2 decades. Now the geopolitical layer, because nothing about this is purely commercial. Grace is ARM, fabbed by TSMC. Blackwell is fabbed by TSMC. Which means Nvidia's entire on-device AI roadmap depends on one fab complex sitting 110 miles from mainland China. DGX Spark also accelerates a policy push Washington has been making since the 2022 CHIPS Act, move AI inference out of hyperscale data centers onto distributed endpoints. Per a Department of Energy briefing from June 2025, U.S. data centers will consume up to 12% of national electricity by 2028. On-device inference is the only release valve. Jensen is selling the Pentagon, the DOE, and every Fortune 500 CFO the same pitch: run the model on the desk, skip the cloud bill, skip the grid bottleneck, skip the China exposure. Now the x86 license question, which is where this gets structurally violent for Intel. The x86 architecture is licensed only to AMD and a handful of legacy players. ARM is licensed to everyone. By anchoring the next compute generation on ARM, Nvidia structurally removes Intel's most valuable asset, the architectural monopoly that generated decades of royalty-equivalent margins. Every ARM chip Nvidia ships is a permanent transfer of economic rent away from Santa Clara and toward Cambridge and Taipei. Intel's moat is not being attacked. It is being routed around. Intel's response has been muted. CEO Lip-Bu Tan, who replaced Pat Gelsinger in March 2025, told the Financial Times in September that Panther Lake would deliver, quote, competitive on-device AI performance. Competitive against what? Panther Lake's NPU is rated near 50 TOPS. DGX Spark delivers roughly 1,000 TOPS at FP4. That is a 20 times gap, and you do not close it with a roadmap slide. AMD's Ryzen AI 300 series, per Tom's hardware benchmarks from July 2025, also tops out near 50 TOPS. Both companies are bringing calculators to a GPU fight. 3 concrete signals to watch over the next 18 months. First, Microsoft. Per the Verge's October 2025 reporting, Windows 11 ARM is already running on Nvidia's GB10 reference platform in internal testing. If Microsoft ships a fully NVIDIA-optimized Windows on ARM build in 2026, Wintel survives in mutated form. If they hesitate, Linux variants ship on tens of millions of Agentic PCs and the duopoly fractures permanently. Second, MediaTek NVIDIA consumer SoC launch timing. The earlier and cheaper it ships, the faster Intel client revenue compresses. Third, antitrust. When one company controls the GPU, the AI software stack, the developer ecosystem, and the OEM reference design, regulators in Washington and Brussels will notice. The first FTC inquiry will be the contrarian by signal for Intel, ironically. Back to the opening number. Nvidia's data center business alone exceeds Intel and AMD's combined market cap on an annualized run rate. That asymmetry is the entire story. Nvidia is not trying to sell more chips than Intel. Nvidia is rebuilding the compute pyramid with itself at every layer: desktop, workstation, server, hyperscale, running one software stack. DGX Spark is the wedge. MediaTek is the hammer. CUDA is the lock-in. And the OEMs just signed up to be Nvidia's distribution network because the margins on a $700 Intel laptop no longer pay the bills. Jensen did not declare war on Wintel. He made Wintel optional. That is worse. If you want to understand the AI chip war before Wall Street does, hit subscribe. I break this down every week. Next video, what happens when Huawei ships its own DGX Spark clone on SMIC's 5nm process? Because they are already trying, and we are going inside the Shenzhen labs racing to copy this exact playbook.